As part of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we are proud to showcase members of the Dodgers organization who impact the team's on-field success. James Kang, he's a Dodgers international cross-checker. Will Ireton, performance operations coordinator. Then the skipper, Dodgers manager Dave Roberts, he's joining us today. Dave, thank you for being with us. We know you're from a military family. You were born and spent part of your childhood in Okinawa, Japan. How did that upbringing influence your life and ultimately your career in baseball?
Yeah, you know, John, I grew up, I was born in Japan, moved to the mainland, spent 4 years in Hawaii, then moved to Southern California. And so with being biracial, African-American father, Japanese mother, there was Japanese spoken in the home. There was good Japanese food always. You know, I moved around a lot, and I had to kind of assimilate, being in, as you mentioned, being in the military, from a military family, just kind of assimilate. And I was always sort of raised in treating people the way you want to be treated. I know it's trite, but I didn't really identify with the black or the Asian side. I just kind of was who I was, and that's the way I was raised by my parents. Certainly taking pride of my background. I think that certainly with the unfortunate incidents that really have come to light over the last year and a half, but these are things, John, that have happened for decades, but now with social media, things are being more caught on camera, and I feel that I'm using my platform, and you know that I'm very hesitant at times to speak on social issues,
right,
and things outside of baseball, but these are life issues. And you know, when I see these hate crimes to elderly, it just really impacts me personally, because that could be my grandmother, my mom, and these are people that are doing as much as people not of color or Asian or Pacific Islander descent for our country as anyone else. So for me to be a part, be a kind of a voice, it's a huge responsibility and honor.
And you've done a great job with that platform and with your voice as well, Dave. And the Dodgers, they have an incredible track record when it comes to diversity and inclusion, from Jackie Robinson to Fernando to Hideo Nomo. And in 2015, you became part of that rich history of the Dodgers as the first minority manager of the team. How special is it to represent this organization and all that it has stood for, going back to the early days of Jackie Robinson?
You know, it's interesting. I'm a history major. But to think that, and I know history, I value what the Dodger organization means to the baseball culture, society, America, the entire world. But when I sort of put myself a part of history, it's really unsettling. And when you say that, it's certainly, it blows me away. But I really don't look at myself in that context. I'm a major league manager for a team that I love, a city I love, an organization I love. But when you kind of frame it like that, it's sort of, again, it's really unsettling.
Unsettling, but you're a very humble man as well, Dave. This week, the Dodgers, they added Yoshi Tsutsugo, further expanding this year's diverse roster. So you now have players from 6 different countries on the 40-man roster. As the manager, what kind of challenges does that bring to your job?
I think it's opportunity. I'm looking forward to meeting Yoshi, and he's kind of a jokester, and so it's a different organization for him. And I'm looking forward to meeting him. And we got a lot of Japanese support staff, which is great. Brian, his interpreter's here, and all the different guys. I think for me, it's great to learn people from different countries and different cultures and backgrounds. And I grew up playing baseball, so I can speak some different languages and communicate with guys. And I just think it's good for all of our guys to kind of learn more about, you know, where their teammates came from.
That is all great. And Dave, last thing for you, your team had that rough stretch recently, losing 15 out of 20 games. You've won 7 out of 8 on this homestand. What has been the biggest difference with how your team has played the last week and a half?
You know, I hesitate to say it's because we're playing at Dodger Stadium, because we're about to go on the road. But I will say that coming back home, being around the fans, just guys getting into their own routines at home, I think it's helped us play a much better brand of baseball and find ways to win. We've won in different fashions. But I think if you just look at it, we're playing better baseball. The starting pitching has been consistently good. The guys in the pen have been great. We're catching the baseball much better and getting timely hits.
And you guys will only get better once you get more healthy bodies back. Dave Roberts, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you come on with us. Thank you for taking the time, Dave.
All right, John, you're the best.
Today we are joined by a familiar face to Sportsnet LA viewers, Will Ireton, Performance Operations Coordinator. Will, thank you so much for being with us. We know you were born and raised in Japan, then went to high school and college here in the U.S., but tell us how Dodger baseball truly impacted your life from the other side of the world.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, John. Just being part of the Dodgers organization has really changed my life. It's a dream organization to be in, an organization that's known for embracing diversity of all race and culture and ethnicity. So I'm just extremely proud and happy to be in this organization.
Dodger fans, they have seen you around the team the last several years, Will, but people might not know that you were actually a baseball player yourself. What can you tell us about your playing career?
Oh, well, I can't really, compared to the players around me, it's very hard to compare myself to them. Obviously, these players are really good, but I was able to play for the Team Philippines in the World Baseball Classic qualifiers. That was back in 2012. And that got me the opportunity for me to try out for the Texas Rangers minor league team, which I did for a year. So that was extent of my playing career, but I grew up loving the sports all my life.
And you mentioned it, Will, your mom is Filipino, so you did play for the Philippines in that World Baseball Classic qualifier, also worked in baseball operations for the team. So what was that whole experience like, being able to be a part of a national team?
Yeah, just as a player, being able to, join the national team has been a great. It's a great way to get to relearn the culture. As a now a grown-up adult, to be able to go to the country that I was least familiar with and get to know my extended family has been great. And then when I transitioned into working for baseball operations for the Team Philippines, it was really, getting the feel for being like what a GM is supposed to be. Scouting the players in the Philippines and in the U.S., getting them to the U.S., or actually we played in Australia, doing a little bit of the travel secretary, doing a lot of the scouting, and basically also recruiting a lot of the coaches.
And you have spent quite a bit of time on our network, Will, serving as Kenta Maeda's interpreter for 3 seasons. That was not only an important role, but you and Kenta developed a unique friendship off the field as well. How did you first get that job with the Dodgers, and what was your relationship like with Kenta?
Well, I went through the normal hiring process, went through getting to know the Dodger personnel, obviously turned in a resume, and eventually the last sort of interview that I had was with Kenta and his family. And I guess I made a good enough of an impression to get the job. But I think looking back with 3 years, as Kenta's interpreter, I thought we were able to develop a really unique relationship, probably a deep relationship, I like to think, a really good friendship now. So he's somebody that I very much cherish as a person, as a friend, and very much respect as a baseball player.
Yeah, we miss all the pranks and the practical jokes between you and Kenta as well. And we would see you in the dugout as well, dancing from time to time. We saw you in a weightlifting contest in the clubhouse with some of the players. You were so welcomed by all of the guys on the team. They even nicknamed you Will the Thrill. What was that experience like for you?
I still pinch myself, to be honest. It's a surreal moment. All I wanted to do was contribute to the team in a positive way, and I know that these players go through a lot, and having somebody of a positive influence, I thought would help, and it just sort of blossomed into something like this. But I'm just really glad it turned out to be a positive experience.
And here you are now. You are the Dodgers Performance Operations Coordinator. What all does your job entail today?
Really, the job as a performance operations coordinator is to help out the coaches and the staff on a daily basis, whether that be providing scouting reports to the coaches and players, whether that be setting up the tech that we use during bullpen sessions, whether that be just assisting with any game duties that we have to help the coaches and players with their feedback process. So really anything that the coaches and players need ultimately.
And Will, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but what does it mean to you to work for an organization in Major League Baseball that has been at the forefront when it comes to inclusion and diversity?
Extremely proud. I think the Dodgers has been one of the organizations that decided to really take this on their, on their back and really embrace this uncertain times. And I'm just extremely proud to be part of this organization that embraces diversity and progress, really.
Will Ireton, the guys like to call him Will the Thrill, the Dodgers Performance Operations Coordinator. Will, thank you so much for taking time to be with us, and continued success.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Today, joining us from Boston, Massachusetts, is James Kang. He's a Dodgers international cross-checker. James, we know you were born and raised here in L.A. in Huntington Beach, but both of your parents immigrated to the U.S. from South Korea. So how did their upbringings and different cultural backgrounds influence you growing up here in the States?
Yeah, so I'll start off with my dad. He actually grew up in Korea, and he didn't move over to the United States until after college. My mother, on the other hand, she traveled a lot because my grandfather was a diplomat. So she moved around from Japan, Samoa, and then finally the U.S. in high school. So they had a little bit different upbringings, but their backgrounds are very much influenced by Korean culture.
Now, before you moved into baseball operations, you were a pretty solid baseball player yourself, an infielder in college, even drafted by the Boston Red Sox in 2010. And I think you played in Germany even a little bit. Tell us about your professional playing experience.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to graduate from Pitzer College. After my fourth year, I was able to get drafted by the Boston Red Sox, and I enjoyed 3 seasons in the minor leagues with them. And after I got done with my career in the States, I wanted to explore playing abroad, and I was actually able to get connected playing overseas in Germany. So it was kind of a good little introduction to international baseball in that lens.
Not many people can say they've played professional baseball there in Germany. That's kind of cool. James, as an international cross-checker now, a lot of your work takes place outside the U.S. What countries have you traveled to, and what exactly does being a cross-checker entail?
Yeah, so I would say the primary countries that I've been going into a lot recently, at least, is Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Colombia. As a cross-checker, I basically come into the different countries, and I'm constantly in communication with our area scouts. The area scouts are in charge of kind of selecting and filtering out some of the better ball players, and my job is kind of to bounce around to different countries and kind of, I guess, rank out the best players from all the different countries and kind of sort them out in an organized list.
And what's also really cool, James, that similar to me, you grew up here in Southern California, a huge Dodgers fan. I still get to be a fan even when hosting these shows. What is it like on your end, going from being a huge fan to now working for the team?
Yeah, honestly, it's really surreal because growing up, I would go to Dodger Stadium all the time. And like, if you were to tell like a younger me that I'd one day work for the Dodgers and actually be a part of a championship team, I probably would never have believed you. I just feel extremely fortunate that I had the opportunity that presented itself where I could come back and work for the hometown team.
Are you able to be a fan just as much now that you're working for them?
I try. It's a little bit, it's a double-edged sword because I got a ton of friends back home that are always messaging me when the team's playing poorly, but they'll also congratulate me when we won the World Championship. So it's a double-edged sword, but yeah, it's still super surreal.
I get all those texts as well. It's kind of crazy. But over the last week, we've talked with Dave Roberts, Will Ireton for AAPI Heritage Month. So who are some AAPI professionals in sports who maybe influenced your career, James?
Yeah, I mean, within the industry, obviously Doc is probably one of the people that I look up to the most. He just has such an extraordinary background and such a good perspective of just sports and life. Other people that have been influential or that I look up to would be Jeremy Lin with basketball, and also Kemming now with the Marlins. So those people in the community, I feel like they've really utilized their platform to really create conversation. Not only that, but represent Asian Americans within professional sports.
James Kang. James, thank you so much for being with us, taking time to share a little bit of your experience and your background and continued success with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.